Well, look at that. Somewhere in a place you've never seen, someone just paused mid-conversation. A screen changed. A report updated. A quiet signal appeared where nothing interesting was supposed to exist. And for the first time, a person with real influence leaned forward and asked a question they rarely ask ye. Who is this? You didn't hear an alarm. No lights flashed. No announcement was made. But something shifted, and whether you understand it yet or not, you crossed an invisible threshold. You triggered attention from a system you didn't even know existed. Strange, isn't it? Because from your perspective, nothing dramatic happened. You were just living your life, making decisions, changing habits, thinking differently, walking into rooms the same way you always have. Yet lately, something feels off. The air feels heavier. Conversations pause slightly longer when you speak. People look at you like they're trying to solve a puzzle they didn't expect to receive. You may not be able to explain it, but you feel watched, not in a paranoid way, not by cameras or strangers, but by awareness itself. Like someone, somewhere, finally noticed the pattern you've been quietly becoming. And here's the unsettling truth. They didn't notice your success. They noticed your change. Powerful observers don't react to noise. They ignore popularity, trends, and loud performances. What captures their attention is deviation, when someone stops behaving predictably. And recently, you stopped being predictable. Maybe you began speaking less but meaning more. Maybe you stopped reacting emotionally to things that once controlled you. Maybe you walked away from situations without explanation. Small shifts to you, massive signals to anyone trained to recognize transformation. You didn't announce growth. You embodied it. That's what triggered the alert, because real power studies patterns. It watches behavior over time. It notices when someone breaks away from expected trajectories, and when your actions no longer matched the version of you they had categorized, curiosity turned into focus. You became an anomaly, not louder, not more visible, just different. And difference is dangerous to systems built on prediction. See, most people live inside familiar loops, same reactions, same ambitions, same fears. They move in ways that can be forecast years in advance. Safe, measurable, understandable. But you changed direction without permission. You started thinking independently, choosing carefully, withdrawing energy from things that once defined you. That kind of shift sends ripples farther than you realize, because unpredictability attracts attention faster than success ever could. Right now, someone powerful is trying to understand you, not emotionally, but analytically. They're asking questions you've never heard. Why did this person suddenly become disciplined? Why did their social patterns change? Why are they quieter but more influential? Why does their presence affect group dynamics differently now? They aren't judging you. They're studying you. And here's what makes this moment fascinating. They won't reveal themselves. People operating at that level don't confront directly. They observe from distance. They gather information. They wait for patterns to confirm themselves. While you're wondering why life feels different, they're recalibrating their understanding of you. Because something about your energy no longer fits the old file they had created. You've moved from background noise to active signal. Regular people still see the familiar version of you. They interact with you through old assumptions, old memories, old expectations. But those who operate through perception rather than appearance, see something else entirely. They see momentum, and momentum is impossible to fake. You didn't suddenly become important. You became inevitable. That's the difference. Somewhere along the way, you stopped seeking approval. You began moving with internal direction instead of external validation. Your decisions started aligning with something deeper, something even you may not fully understand yet. But they noticed? They always notice when someone begins operating from intention instead of reaction. And now comes the uncomfortable part. Once attention like this begins, it doesn't simply disappear. Because attention from power isn't emotional, it's strategic. You represent a variable they haven't calculated before, a possibility they can't yet categorize. And uncertainty makes powerful people curious. Curiosity becomes observation. Observation becomes evaluation. Evaluation becomes decision. You didn't ask to enter this process. But growth has a strange side effect. Once you evolve past a certain point, invisibility is no longer an option. You start affecting environments without trying. Rooms shift subtly when you enter. Conversations reorganize. People reassess themselves around you. Not because you demand attention, but because authenticity disrupts expectation. And disruption always gets noticed. Right now, you stand in a strange space, still living your normal life, yet unknowingly appearing on someone else's radar as a developing force. You haven't been contacted. You haven't been confronted, but you have been seen. And the reason they can't look away has nothing to do with who you are today. It has everything to do with what they believe you're becoming. Something changed the moment you stopped trying to prove yourself. You didn't announce it. You didn't make a grand declaration. You simply withdrew your need for approval. And that silence, it echoed louder than anything you had ever said. Because most people are comfortable when they can predict you. They relax when they believe they understand your limits, your reactions, your weaknesses. But then you broke the pattern. You stopped explaining, stopped chasing validation, stopped shrinking your thoughts to fit inside their comfort zones. And suddenly, the atmosphere around you felt different. You noticed it first in small ways. Conversations paused when you entered a room. Eyes lingered a little longer than usual. People who once ignored you began studying you quietly, trying to decode what changed. They couldn't name it, but they felt it. You see, power doesn't arrive with noise. It arrives with clarity. The moment you realized you didn't need permission to exist fully, something inside you aligned. Your posture changed. Your tone slowed. Your presence became deliberate. And humans are wired to detect shifts in dominance and confidence, even when nothing is spoken. That's when they noticed, not just anyone, the observer, the person who understands influence, hierarchy, and potential. They recognize the pattern because they've seen it before, in leaders, disruptors, and individuals who eventually reshape their environments. They saw restraint where others expected reaction. They saw patience where others expected desperation. And that combination is rare. Most people either chase attention or avoid responsibility, but you began doing neither. You moved with intention, and intention is intimidating. Because intention signals awareness. It tells the world you are no longer operating on autopilot. Think about it. Before this shift, people categorized you easily. They placed you into familiar roles, predictable, manageable, harmless. Labels make others comfortable. But now, You no longer fit the label. And when someone can't label you, they start watching you. That powerful individual didn't become interested because you tried harder. They became interested because you stopped performing. You became real, raw, unfiltered. And authenticity, when combined with self-control, creates gravity. People feel pulled toward it, even if they don't understand why. But attention from power isn't always warm. Sometimes it's cautious, measured, analytical. Because powerful people don't look for perfection. They look for potential energy, something unfinished but undeniable. And that's what they sensed in you. Potential that hasn't peaked yet. A mind that questions instead of follows. A presence that doesn't beg for recognition, but naturally earns it. You might have mistaken this period for isolation. Maybe you felt distance growing between you and others, friends acting uncertain, conversations becoming shallow, connections fading without explanation. But isolation is often the space where transformation becomes visible. When you evolve internally, your external environment recalibrates. Some people drift away because they were connected to your old identity. Others stay, but watch carefully. And then there are the few who recognize evolution as it happens. Those are the observers who matter. The powerful one watching you isn't fascinated by what you've achieved so far. They're focused on what you're becoming. Because transformation leaves clues, consistency in chaos, calm under pressure, the ability to walk away from what once controlled you. These are signals, and signals attract attention from those who understand growth as strategy, not accident. You didn't realize it, but every time you chose discipline over impulse, you were broadcasting a message. Every time you stayed silent, instead of reacting emotionally, you changed how people perceived your strength, and perception shapes opportunity. Now the dynamic has reversed. You're no longer trying to be seen. You are being observed, and observation changes the game. Because once someone powerful notices potential, two possibilities emerge. They may test you, or they may open a door you didn't know existed. But either way, nothing returns to normal. Why? Because awareness cannot be undone. They've seen something real, and deep down, you've started to see it too. The question is no longer whether you are capable. The question is whether you're ready for what recognition brings. Because attention from power isn't comfort, it's pressure. And pressure reveals truth. You think being noticed feels like recognition. It doesn't. At first it feels like resistance. Because the moment someone powerful locks onto your potential, the universe doesn't reward you immediately. It evaluates you. And evaluation rarely looks friendly. Suddenly situations become heavier. Small problems turn complex. Opportunities appear wrapped in uncertainty instead of comfort. You start wondering if things are actually getting worse. But they aren't. You're being measured. Not by words, by reactions. See, powerful observers don't trust what people say about themselves. Anyone can claim confidence. Anyone can pretend strength when life is easy. Real character only reveals itself when pressure interrupts peace. So the test begins quietly. Someone challenges your patience. Plans fall apart at the last second. You're misunderstood when you know your intentions were pure. Old you would have reacted instantly, defended yourself, explained everything, tried to fix how others perceived you. But now, you pause, and that pause changes everything. Because restraint signals control, and control signals power. The observer notices this more than success itself. Success can be luck, but composure is a decision. You start realizing something strange. Not every battle deserves your energy. And when you stop fighting unnecessary wars, people become confused. They expected drama. They expected emotional reactions. Instead, they meet silence. Calmness unsettles those who rely on chaos. And this is where many people fail the test. They mistake attention for validation. They try to impress the watcher. They perform confidence instead of embodying it. But authenticity cannot be performed for long. The powerful individual watching you already knows this. They're not looking for perfection. They're watching consistency. Do you remain grounded when praised? Do you stay focused when ignored? Do you continue improving when nobody claps? These moments are invisible auditions. And most people never realize they're happening. You might have noticed doors almost opening, then closing again. Conversations that hinted at opportunity, but never finished. Moments where you felt seen, then suddenly alone again. That isn't rejection. That's observation at a distance, because true power never rushes decisions. It studies patterns, and your pattern has begun to change. You're no longer reacting to life. You're responding to it. There's a difference. Reaction is emotional. Response is intentional. Reaction belongs to survival. Response belongs to growth. The more you respond instead of react, the clearer your presence becomes. People start projecting expectations onto you. Some admire you quietly. Others feel threatened without understanding why. You didn't become louder, you became steady, and steadiness exposes instability in others. That's why tension sometimes increases when you evolve. Your calm reflects their chaos. Your discipline highlights their hesitation. Your silence forces them to confront their own noise. And the observer sees how you handle this tension. Do you shrink to make others comfortable, or do you remain authentic without aggression? This balance is rare, too soft, and you disappear too aggressive, and you become predictable. But controlled intensity, that's influence. You're learning to occupy space without demanding attention. And paradoxically, that attracts more attention than ever before. The watcher understands something you're only beginning to realize. You're transitioning from potential into presence. Potential is what you could be. Presence is what people feel when you enter a room. And presence cannot be faked. It's built through internal alignment. When your thoughts, actions, and values stop contradicting each other. That alignment creates certainty, and certainty makes others nervous. Because certainty cannot be manipulated easily. Now the tests grow subtler. You'll be given choices that look small but define direction. Comfort or growth. Approval or authenticity. Speed or patience. Every decision signals who you are becoming. And somewhere quietly, the powerful observer is gathering evidence, not judging you, understanding you. Because once they decide what role you're capable of playing, everything changes. But there's one final realization waiting ahead. The biggest twist. You were never being watched only for their benefit. You were being prepared for your own transformation and the final test. It's coming sooner than you think. Here's the part nobody tells you. The powerful person watching you was never the real story. You were all along. Because observation isn't just about recognition, it's about activation. The moment someone sees potential in you, something dangerous happens. You start seeing it too. And once awareness awakens, you can't return to ignorance. You begin noticing your own patterns. The excuses that once sounded reasonable now feel weak. The fears that controlled you suddenly look smaller. The limits you accepted start feeling artificial. It's uncomfortable. Growth always is, because transformation demands the death of familiarity. The version of you that needed approval fades. The version that waited for permission disappears. The version that doubted every step loses its voice, and in its place emerges something quieter, but far more powerful. Self-trust, not loud confidence, not arrogance, just certainty. The kind that doesn't need witnesses. This is why the observer locked onto you in the first place. They recognized a threshold moment, a psychological crossing. You were standing between who you were trained to be and who you were capable of becoming. Most people never cross that line. They retreat when life becomes uncertain. They return to comfort, predictability, safety. But you didn't. Even when you were confused, you kept moving. Even when nobody understood, you kept evolving. That persistence created a signal, and powerful individuals notice signals, not noise. They saw resilience forming before success appeared. They saw discipline growing before results arrived. They saw someone learning to stand alone without becoming bitter. That combination is rare, because solitude breaks many people. But for you, solitude refined you. You learned to listen to your thoughts instead of running from them. You learned patience when outcomes delayed. You learned silence, and silence sharpened your awareness. Now look carefully at what's happening. The attention you sensed, the pressure you felt, the tests you endured. They weren't obstacles. They were mirrors. Each challenge revealed parts of yourself you hadn't fully accepted yet. Strength hidden beneath doubt. Leadership hidden beneath hesitation. Fearlessness hidden beneath caution. And here's the twist worthy of a Joker smile. The powerful observer doesn't control your future. You do. Their attention was simply confirmation, proof that your transformation became visible externally. But real power begins the moment you stop needing validation entirely. Because when you no longer act to impress, you act with purpose. And purpose creates momentum. You'll notice something strange from now on. Opportunities won't always arrive loudly. Some will appear disguised as responsibility. Others will look like risk. Some will even feel like loss at first, but you'll recognize them differently now. Not as threats, as invitations. You're no longer asking, "Why is this happening to me?" You're asking, "What is this preparing me for?" That question changes everything. Because life stops feeling random once you understand growth follows awareness. And awareness has already found you. The nervous energy you sense from others, it wasn't hatred. It wasn't jealousy alone. It was uncertainty. People become uneasy when someone quietly rewrites their own identity. You remind them change is possible, and that realization forces reflection they may not be ready for. So some will distance themselves. Some will doubt you. Some will watch from the shadows, waiting to see whether this new version of you is temporary. Let them watch. You're not performing anymore. You're becoming, and becoming is unstoppable once it begins. Remember this: power isn't dominance. It isn't control. It isn't intimidation. Real power is alignment, when who you are internally matches how you move externally. When your actions no longer betray your values. When your direction no longer depends on approval. That's the moment fear leaves your decisions. And when fear leaves, influence enters. The observer noticed your potential. But now the role shifts. You are no longer the one being watched. You are the one defining the narrative, the one others begin studying, the one whose calm changes rooms, the one whose presence speaks before words ever do. And the final truth: this was never random. Not the struggle, not the attention, not the transformation. You didn't accidentally become someone powerful noticed. You became someone impossible to ignore. So walk forward carefully, not cautiously, consciously. Because now you know something most people never realize. The real power that locked onto you was the power you awakened within yourself. And once awakened, it never goes back to sleep.